How does the Logitech G Hub along with the C920 and the Blue Yeti compare to a $2,000 streaming setup with a Sony full-frame A7 camera and a Shure MV7 microphone? We're going to find out next. Okay, so I've been reviewing lots of microphone and cameras on my channel for a while now. This time I want to put to the test kind of my full-time streaming setup against the whole Logitech stack just to see how they can compare. I'm going to try to compare the exact same framing. I'm going to also set up the same microphone settings to make sure it matches what we can hear out of the Shure microphone, and that's been tuned a bit as well, and see if we can get these two items here to match more or less what I have, you know, with a full frame camera, proper lens, and, you know, a decent microphone setup. So let's see how that works out. Alright, so now I'm on the Logitech C920 with the Blue Yeti with a couple of optimizations and tunes that I've done, but not too much. I've done a couple of tweaks with the G Hub app, and I gotta say the G Hub app is pretty good in terms of getting this camera to get close to both the look, the skin tone accuracy, those types of things from the Sony, as well as the sounds that I had through my Shure microphone, which is, you know, about 2.5, maybe 3 times the price of this one. So pretty good. I'm actually pretty excited in terms of some of the things that you can do with G Hub. So let's take a look on that side just to see some of the things that I actually modified. I've got one more tip in terms of NVIDIA Broadcast, and I'll show you what that did in terms of giving me this nice bokeh effect behind me. All right, so on the camera settings first, let's have a look at kind of the main settings here. With exposure, I turned off the auto exposure and I just made it go down one stop. I left the autofocus turned on in this case, and you can see it hunts occasionally, but it's not too bad. It's pretty livable. And, you know, I've got everything zoomed at 100% because I actually brought the camera a little bit closer to me to try to match the frame of the Sony, which is actually about 2 feet behind this camera at the moment, but it's got a 30mm lens, hence the different you know, size of kind of my head relative to the objects that you're seeing in the background. And now if we move into the video settings, let's take a look at what's been done there. You can see that basically all of the defaults I've kept. The only thing I've done is I've changed the brightness, and I had to move that down to 20%. Now, just so you know, my light source as well, usually it's about 5500 kelvins. I've gone with the warmer setting, the medium setting. There's 3 different settings on my particular ring light. I've got kind of a softbox diffuser around it. I'm on the middle setting, so not the very warm light, not the 5500 Kelvin kind of bluish white light, but I'm in the middle medium setting with this camera to try to again match the same skin tones and the white balance that I was able to get through the Sony A7. All right, so let's move on now to the microphone settings, because G Hub's done a great job, or I should say Logitech's done a great job with G Hub to build in a lot of the great defaults for the Blue Yeti microphone. So let's take a look at some of those things and some of the capabilities that they built in. So here you can see that I've got a few of the settings turned on. I actually used a version of the Broadcaster 1 version of the Blue Voice preset. That was the closest, I think, to the sound of the Shure microphone that I normally use. All you have to do is hit the Create button there, and that will create a new version of the preset. In my case, I'll just go ahead and delete this one and leave the version that I have running right now, which is just a small variation to the Broadcaster 1 default setting. Now, a couple things that it does is it boosts the highs up. It lowers down this kind of mid-bass 450 hertz range. That's kind of the lower vocal range. My voice is kind of low, so that kind of helps it out a bit. And also boosts up the 175, so that's that bass tone, especially if you've got, like, for example, right now I'm about maybe 8-9 inches away from the microphone, so that will help in terms of bringing a little bit of that proximity effect back into the microphone. And in terms of the signal cleanup, these are all the default settings that I left here. You can see the nice thing with the Blue Voice settings in G Hub, it's got a noise reduction built in, a noise gate, which is basically the noise floor when the microphone starts to work. This is nice because it's going to eliminate things like breathing noises, some of your keyboard taps. If you've got an air conditioner or something in the background, or a fan, that's going to help, maybe your gaming PC fan. The compressor, in terms of making sure that if you shout, it will actually make sure that those Audio thresholds are, not clipping your microphone. A de-esser for all the S noises, a de-popper so you don't have plosives or anything like that getting in the way, and also a limiter as part of kind of the default settings here. And you can also change your input gain and your output level. But again, really great capabilities here in terms of making a natural sound with Blue Voice. And there's a bunch of different presets that you can try out. For me, with kind of the characteristics of my voice, I thought the broadcaster one with the equalization and things that you just saw sounded pretty good. There's also an NVIDIA broadcast kind of noise removal and echo removal filter. When I turned this on, I was having kind of sporadically good and bad effects on this. I actually heard my voice kind of pulse louder than softer than louder at times, so I actually turned this off. I don't think you need it unless your microphone's really far away or you've got a pretty empty room, then maybe you want to experiment with that. But I think NVIDIA broadcast capabilities are pretty good. In fact, what I want to show you is NVIDIA broadcast and what I've done to actually make the camera quite a bit better. So let me show you something I've done there. And this is the background blur that you can do with NVIDIA broadcast. And this is nice because it gives that effect like you actually have a real lens hooked up to your camera. So you can go super blurry if you want to, but you can see that there's like some artifacts and things if I do that on my chair backrest, for example. But if you just go down and kind of make it, not over the top in terms of background blur, it actually looks pretty close to the way, a normal camera lens would blur that with the low aperture value. So like my f1.4 and 1.8 cameras have more or less the kind of bokeh effect like you can see right now in this image. The only thing I'd really faulted on, the lights behind me, they are white. And in the background here, you can see that they look pretty purple. And, in the Sony camera, it captures that correctly. They are set to like 5,000 kelvins on both sides. And for some reason on the, on the side over here, it looks like the light is indeed the right color temperature. But the one back here, it's almost red purple, like in the walls, the wall panels that I have. They look like concrete. They're gray. There's no purple or red to them at all. That's one of the things that you can see where the tones are a little bit off, just to be able to achieve both skin tone as well as, the background accuracy. That's where this camera doesn't quite perform as well, but it's a $70 camera versus a $1,500 camera for the Sony. Okay, so we saw some surprises along the way, I think, in terms of how everything looked. In terms of camera quality, we got it pretty close. We also got the microphone to sound a whole lot better. So if this was helpful for you, if it helped kind of either make a decision on your purchase or improve the way that your camera and your microphone are set up, also maybe validate a purchase that you've made around the Logitech C920 or the Blue Yeti microphone, please be sure to like this video, give me a thumbs up, or subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And as always, thank you so much for watching.